Do the work. Do.
You gotta work the motion. Bam! Or the ocean. Bam!
I didn't know.
I've gotten so many guns from this Bitcoin.
I have an idea.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to
Buckle up, baby.
episode
20.
It's nice to celebrate
Double
round
digits,
numbers.
Yeah.
Episode 20.
That's pretty cool.
And we're just cruising right along here.
Yeah. The setup has gotten a lot easier.
Streamlined.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, it's at the point now where it's just a part of the ether of our creative world.
Yeah. We do a little warm up.
That's great. We do this we do this pre-podcast off camera basically when we're setting up, and we basically just drain ourselves of all good things to say.
It'd be funny for the Patreon one day.
Yeah.
You can get the warm up.
Of how we set up and everything?
Yeah, like we film us setting up, and you get that as part of the Patreon, because that's the good stuff, really.
Patreon is an interesting thing. I keep thinking about it, because I launched my own Patreon for AJ Comedy. Mm-hmm. Right now I'm at 0 patrons. Mm-hmm. And I have
Your
been
parents didn't?
No, I have been scheming to my parents just became $50,000 patrons. It's so nice, homie. No, I've been scheming and figuring out how to do it. What?
No, that's a tough place to be. You launch it and
well, I didn't expect necessarily anything, because there is a different MO of how to convert these followers and subscribers into paying people. I know there's a mechanism, and there are things people talk about, raffles and giveaways. Hey guys, first people to sign up, put in $5, become a patron, and I'll give you an Xbox 360. It feels a little dirty, but not really. It's like a fun way to try to give people something as opposed to just asking them to sign up. Like, what's the incentive? What's the game? There are people with a mind for this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I don't have it yet.
I don't have it either.
I'll get better at it with time, I would imagine, but the simple question is, sign up. I'm giving it all this free content. It's entertaining, and if you like it, come become a patron. It seems so simple, but human psychology doesn't really work that way, because people will be like, "Oh yeah, for sure."
Right. Well, yeah. So with the newsletter, I was like, I'm gonna push probably for the first time my whole creative life. I'm gonna really push this thing and ask family and friends, like implicitly, please sign up and subscribe. And in my head, I thought to myself, if I ask all of my friends to do it, I think like if I got 25 subscriptions, I'm not even asking for money. I was like, I think if I get 25, that would be a success. Right. Asking everyone I know. It's like on the high end, if I got 100, that would be like a huge success. No, but really like,
I already think that's a mistake, by the way, to think of it like that as an ask. It has to be and this is what all the content creators will tell you, it has to be what's in it for them. You have to think about, here's what you'd get if you sign up for this, and I want to provide you with something, not provide me with a favor.
So the way I did it, I don't know if you signed up, but the way
I probably didn't. I don't think I got anything for it.
I sent you a text. The way I did it.
Okay, so there you go. It didn't work even on me, and I'm your fucking co-host.
But you don't read.
I skim.
You skim. It's not for the skimmers. No, the way I did it is I created the first issue, and I sent out, here's what it's going to look like. It'll take you like a minute to read. If you like it, please subscribe. So that was kind of the. If
it's such a short ask and I didn't even sign up, then something is not working.
I got like 100 sign up. So I mean, I got 80. So it did. So people did do it.
Okay.
No, but people signed up.
Yeah. But now they got to get something.
No, and the truth is, you're not in. I love you, but you're not in the demographic I don't think I'm trying to like reach. You're not someone who I think would enjoy what I'm putting down. And truthfully, I don't want. My goal really is like I got 80 signups from people who like know me and like me. Right. I this sounds like BS, but ideally half of those people would drop away who don't actually want what I'm doing, and they would swap with people who might like it. So like they'd send it to a friend of theirs. So they were like, I think you'd enjoy this, and they would kind of drop out.
I mean, yeah.
So I don't want. Obviously, it'd be nice to have like a subscriber.
You don't want favors.
I don't want favors. Like, and I don't think you're probably in the demographic.
Yeah, remember back in the day when we were like in high school and early college, I'd be like, come to the show, you should come. So like the first one you came to, had a good time. Second one, but by the third or fourth ask, you're like, I'll see if I can come. Like, because it wasn't necessarily what was in it for you unless you really liked it. Right. I couldn't expect even my closest friends to like keep showing up, with the exception of maybe parents who just would come because they're boomers and yay, we'll come. Yeah. But it has to be something that they're getting out of it. That's what I've learned in doing content.
Right.
People respond not to promo, like, hey, do us a favor, come on down. We really need this. I really need this. Do it for me. It's like, how do you frame things in such a way and actually deliver in such a way where you're offering consumers something?
Right.
And once I started thinking that way, it becomes a little easier, but I still don't know exactly how to do that other than keep continuously giving away stuff for free and accumulating the audience.
Yeah.
How to monetize the audience.
I mean, something.
And that's what my Patreon video is sort of like. With your support, what I'm going to be able to do is offer you guys better quality content. That's what I presented in my ask in my Patreon.
Something like your video with Tyler, like the video with Tyler is like good stuff.
Right.
Like, it got like a few 100,000 views, right?
Yeah.
What if you
Tyler Fisher, comedian, friend,
really funny
great
comedian.
great comic, and we recently collaborated on some stuff, and we'll be doing more.
Yeah, and you made this really successful video.
Yeah.
What if you did the next one intentionally to be like, this is only for my new Patreon subscribers, and like, and he knew, so like you weren't using him, but you were like, maybe I'll even pay you $500 to make this video with me or whatever, or we'll split some kind of proceeds from it, and then you put out new video with Taylor. Subscribe to Patreon.
Patrons only.
Like patrons only.
Yeah, something like that would be harder to do with a collaborator who has a different Patreon. So I would do something myself and say, I'm now starting to release. I think you're right. I think what I'd have to do is start feeding the Patreon.
Oh yeah.
And then people start to come on board. As opposed to come on board, I'll give you stuff. Like give you stuff and make it only available to patrons. There's no one there yet. But maybe they'll start to come when they want to watch something.
I think so.
And then, like, a friend of ours who's an agent was like telling me, you could do raffles, you could do giveaways, you could do all that kind of stuff. Hey, the winner gets a free Zoom show with me, and it's for patrons only. It's for this. Like, you have to create a space where it feels special and compels people to want to sign up.
Yeah.
But it's just so hard to do that. But it's true. Like, people like you do an extra podcast a week for just the patrons.
Or if you did
how do we do it for us?
A live show, and like you gave away tickets to all the patrons.
So on that front, I mean,
that's empty, but right now, no. But like, I don't know.
Hey, we were at Tyler's show in Brooklyn. Remember the one I opened for? He said these are mostly patrons, and I'm fascinated by that process of how to accumulate those people, because I'm like, there's 140,000 people supposedly follow me on TikTok, and there's this funny math game that we like to play as non-literate, non-savvy finance people. We like, if half of those followers gave me $1 a month, $1 a month, done. Yeah. Those things where you take out a calculator and you go, I'm being savvy with my numbers here in business. If I divide by 7, adding 365 days, 12 months a year I'll be making $1,500 a minute in no time.
It's not so unsavvy, though, to think if 1%, which I think is realistic to think, like,
1% conversion rate.
1% conversion rate would be 1,400.
Here we go.
1,400. Yeah, I think it would be 1,400. No, it would be. It'd be 1,400.
It could be. I don't know.
Should we do them? Do you have your phone on you?
Yeah, no. Somewhere else.
1,400 plus 2 zeros is 140,000.
Hey, I'll take your word for it.
So if you got 1,400 people to give you $5 a month, that would be like $7,000 a month, something like that.
Right.
Something like that.
It all sounds so doable, right?
But 1%, why? Yeah, I mean, like, why couldn't you get 1%? 1 out of every 100 people who follow you. That actually sounds like a lot when you put it like that.
1 out of every 100.
Every 100 TikTok follower. Do you think would give you money? I don't know.
I actually think YouTube subscribers are more willing to convert to paid subscribers than TikTok, because I think TikTok is the most of the different platforms on the tier. Yeah, it's like TikTok, Instagram, and at the highest level is YouTube. Of like someone who subscribes on YouTube is searching for you, finds you, and then actively subscribes. I think on TikTok it's more like, yeah, cool, I want to hear more of this.
What if you did a live?
Because TikTok is about serving TikTok and not about serving the creators as much as YouTube is about the creator economy, where people can really build sustainable business. From what I've heard,
I have an idea.
Yeah,
you do a live hour-long show. You call it live TikTok. You get 60 comics to do a live TikTok.
TikTok has live on
stage. No, just a minute-long live TikTok, and then they switch.
And this massive thumb comes across the stage instead of those old school. It's just a swipe.
And everyone gets a sign for a like or a dislike.
That would be such a funny thing. It's a live TikTok showcase where it's people stand behind what looks like a screen, but it's really live. Yeah. And then there's
you get a minute to do your thing.
And the audience swipes or keeps.
And it could be anything. Someone could be like hitting their father with like a brick, and someone could be doing like a bit.
Yeah, like an ass just shaking on stage.
Someone dancing to music. It's not a bad idea.
A live TikTok showcase would be a funny concept. People would totally come once.
Yeah, or they would watch the TikTok. Oh, and then you do
And you live stream TikTok
of the
on TikTok.
Just a minute long, a minute of the every
live TikTok on TikTok live. That's meta.
Not bad.
Yeah.
You know what I saw? I was just saying. I was thinking you could give the proceeds to Ukraine. Have you seen these like campaigns to raise money for Ukraine?
A little bit.
I don't understand. How can you give money to like a sovereign country? What kind of thing is that to do? They have like taxes.
Right.
Like, I don't understand why anyone would give their money
to the country,
Ukraine.
Well, I don't know what is that. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what it means either. Yeah. They raised $15 million of Bitcoin. Who's giving their Bitcoin
weapons to the?
Yeah, but they're a country like the EU is giving them weapons.
Right.
Like, why do I have to give my money? Why would anyone give their
fine.
income?
Give it to Russia, Michael.
It's the like. The mindset of like what we do of like BLM like donate to like when Trump was elected like donate to like women's causes. Like,
I would imagine there's
you should just donate to Ukraine.
But maybe there's like the Food, Health and Human Services Department of Ukraine that takes the money.
I don't think that's what it is. They're saying I think like give money to Ukraine so they can arm their people.
Right.
It's like someone like America.
So you think there's some Ukrainian guy saying I've gotten so many guns from this Bitcoin?
I heard this guy on this. Ukrainian comedian on Tim Dillon's podcast was like
Ukrainian. Yes, this actual Ukrainian guy.
He's like, if you're not walking around like armed samurai in Kiev, you are nothing. You're nobody.
I saw that Tim Dillon connected with a Ukrainian comic. Yeah.
I know
he had his fun. He had his fun with him. His tweets have been off the charts on this whole thing.
I'm not.
If you're against nuclear war, I don't even want to hear your opinion. Just like really crazy, hilarious. Really obviously, in true Tim Dillon fashion. I love the Paul family more than I love the like Jake Paul said like Tim Dillon is a great follow, and he just like responds. I don't know. He says I love the Pauls like they're my own family.
I should get on Twitter just to follow him. But I wanted to talk about something. Right before I came, I was watching Genius, which you weren't sure what it was.
Isn't Genius like a YouTube show that like features different things?
No, so it's JEEN-YUHS. It's on Netflix. Okay. It's a 3-part documentary about Kanye.
Oh yes, Genius. Of course,
the new Kanye because that's how they say it in the documentary. Yeah.
Kanye.
Yes. So I had watched it was the first part premiered at Sundance. Which
9-part series?
It's 3 parts. Each is like over 2 hours.
Wow.
But this guy, Cody, followed. He met Kanye when Kanye was like 7. Like
he's been documenting him forever.
Forever. Yeah. Before he had a career. I mean, I'm really curious how that financially worked. Like, like who paid him? I don't know. It's crazy.
He was just a posse guy and just started filming.
It seems like he was with him all the time. I wonder if Kanye paid for it. I don't know. And he turned it into this documentary. So the first part was really cool.
I've seen clips. I'm like, it's all cool. Because I've seen some of these as viral release little snippets on YouTube before, like Kanye rapping for Pharrell, his song.
So I was watching. So the second part is about the first part is about how he goes from. He's a really successful producer, but he wants to be a rapper. Nobody else wants him to be a rapper. And the first part is how he gets Rockefeller Records to sign him as a rapper. So like he basically, like we talked last week, gets to the top of the mountain at the end of this first part.
Top of the hill or the top of the mountain?
Top of the hill.
Yeah.
Well, he feels like it's the top of the mountain, but really it's the
foot of the mountain.
Of the hill.
Top of the hill, foot of the mountain.
Top of the hill, foot of the mountain. Oh, you know what? I never quite understood that until
now. You do. Get it? You think you're there, and then there's a lot more.
Got it. Yeah. So the second part opens as he achieves his dream. Basically, he's like, now I'm going to be a rapper, and it becomes clear that Rockefeller does not take him seriously as a rapper, and they're just sort of signing him so he continues to make beats for their other artists. Which is like tough because like it's like what else do you do? Like I got a deal. Like what else do I have to do? Which I really relate to right now, like where I'm at. So I was like really watching, like really like, wrapped. And then they send him to LA to make. He wants to make a record, but they're like, go to LA and make beats for this other artist we signed after you, who's like a little bit more Rockefeller than you are. So he goes to LA.
Who is Rockefeller label? Who owns Rockefeller?
That's like Jay-Z, and I think this guy Dame Dash. That's like all I know.
He had produced for Jay-Z already.
Yeah. He had a really big career as a producer. He produced H to the Izzo. That was his song with Jay-Z. there's this really amazing moment where like he's at a party with Jay-Z and like you're like he produced like one of his biggest songs of his career and he's waiting in line to see Jay-Z. They like dap up for a second and you know Kanye smiles and then Jay-Z's like next and you're like what else do you have to do besides produce a hit for him to get his attention? It's like it was.
I've seen clips though where he had a lot of respect for Kanye in the studio and like he was making his music, making his
so
beats and
it
stuff.
doesn't seem it's not that he doesn't have respect, but like he's like it's not like the thing yet. Like so they send him to L.A. He's making these beats that he doesn't want to make, and he gets into a car crash and
breaks his jaw,
and they have to wire it shut. And then Rockefeller's like, you know, if you weren't a priority before, you're really not a priority now. And he's in this position where he's like, he knows he's a really talented rapper. He's in the room that he has to be in, and it's still not working for him.
Yeah.
And like, and I really related to that personally because I worked really hard for a long time, not forever, but like 5 to 7 years, sort of. Whatever, it's more seriously than non-seriously, and like I got this opportunity to like pitch my show, and like I got a manager, and then also and then I'm in this place where it's like the work's not just coming to me, like and I'm not even saying like Kanye wasn't saying like give me a platinum album, he's just like give me the studio time you promised me and like market my record like you promised me, but like he's not even getting that out of it, and no one made me any promises, but it's like. It feels like what else do I need to do to like get my start?
This was resonant with you.
It was resonant for me, and
I've been in the room too where I'm on the production side of things and I'm watching sort of the talent do what I feel I could relate to creatively, like whether it's a VO booth and the actor is singing a song or part of a show, and I'm like, even my bandmates were once like. I'm like, yeah. It's like for a cartoon, and I'm working on it. And he's doing the lines. I feel like, this is like right up your alley.
Is that what you want to be doing?
Not necessarily. So I wasn't like all like, you know, but I thought to myself, like if that's what it is, like it was demystifying the whole process for me. And I'm watching like, for example, you know, I demoed a song. We wrote a song for this movie for Nickelodeon, and the guy had to have a Scottish accent. So I demoed the vocal to pitch the song, you know, and it was like, you know, this town is named for you, yes, this town is named for you, and I did it, and the guy that got was Scottish. He did it better than I did, you know, and it was fine. But it just gave me a sense of like, you know, my part of it was the services part, the production part, and the same dynamic that Kanye was servicing the artist, the talent that was Jay-Z.
Right.
And giving his skill and craft and lending it to be part of some bigger picture that ultimately served Jay-Z's vision and Jay-Z's artistry and Jay-Z's fan base.
Yeah.
Like Jay-Z's fans are bouncing to H to the is O, B to, and they're all there to see him. He's the value, he's the one that it all ends up going to. And you can have a very nice career doing that. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you also want to cultivate your own audience, that has to go beyond industry and it has to go above that, which is sort of the space I'm occupying now with the content and the podcast is this new opportunity and new space of cultivating direct fans. We're not making this podcast for some podcast company that needs a podcast.
Right.
You know,
right.
We doing this for us, baby.
So he's
I know angels watching me, holding me down. What's that line he says to Pharrell? And then Pharrell goes, "Hoo, hoo, oh!" When he does his rap in that scene with Pharrell watching the whole time.
I think he says,
I know angels watching me from the other side. I forgot what he says.
I don't remember what he says.
But he's like, he's doing his flow in his early Kanye days, and then Pharrell's great because he's just so enthusiastic. But finish your point.
So Kanye raps for Pharrell, and Pharrell goes, I didn't know. He just keeps saying, I didn't know. Pharrell, I didn't know. He's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And then he plays him through the wire. He's like, he walks out of the room. It's in the video and he goes, that was phenomenal. He goes, that was phenomenal. So what Kanye says, he's like, I can only express myself 50% through the beats. Like there's another 50% that I can't do unless I'm in front of the mic. So anyway, so he's in this space where he's like, he's in a hospital. Like he got to the top of what he thought was the mountain, and it was, I lost the analogy, but like it just wasn't the thing. And like,
but he realized he was at the top of the hill, foot of the mountain.
Yeah, well, yeah, and so like it's in a place that I relate to of like what else do I have to do? I have sort of like, I haven't given up by any means, but I lost a lot of steam. And like I think like I felt like a little heartbroken. I probably still do, and like sad. And like I'm just sort of like I don't know what else to do. But what he did is he spent his own money. Um, he had a record label. He was supposed to be getting paid for all this. He spent his own money taking studio time from artists who had extra time in their studios and going around finishing up his own album. And then he had a release party for it. He invited the founder of the record label there. Then he made a video, a music video for his best song. He invited the founder of the record label there. It was like genius, and the record label was like, Dame Dash is like, I hear you. I'm sorry. Like, let's go. But he like the like fire of knowing you have something great to share and just stopping, not letting the circumstances or like the heartbreak stop you and just going forward. It was like so like it really, 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 really affected me. And I was like, when all that happened, I was in high school. I remember standing in my bedroom watching MTV2 and Through the Wire. Do you know that video, Through the Wire? It was like the big single from that album. It came on. I remember seeing it and being like, what is this? Like, who is this guy?
What was Through the Wire? I remember Jesus Walks. Jesus Walks was the first sort of Kanye song I heard.
That was like the next big, that was the big song, but this was the first song. And it was
because the devil's trying to hold me down. That one,
yeah. So this one, he used the footage from the documentary maker to make this video. Like they snuck into MTV and like the studios and did it. And and I remember then he went on Def Jam Poetry to promote himself. And I was watching Def Jam Poetry when this guy Kanye came on. I'm like, who is this guy? This guy's like incredible.
I remember it was like our year in Israel. Like we were 18. A friend of mine at the time was a friend of ours, mutual friend, was like, "There's a guy Kanye West on me. You have to check out because he's like done all the beats and now he's like doing his own thing. You got like that was his story."
Yeah.
But here we go, a little segment on Buckle Up called Chizuk Time. What is Chizuk, Michael, for the audience? Strengthening. So here's what's gonna happen for you. I know it, man. I can feel it. Here's what's going to happen for you. Similarly, you're in that space now where like you've been doing what you do and no one's reacting in a sense, or not enough. You've been showcasing it, you think. But what ends up happening is, I think, not that you ignore feedback from other people, but if you really truly believe in what you're doing and that it's worth recognition, what happens is someone eventually does recognize one thing, some publication, somebody publishes, somebody says, hey, and takes that shot. And then everybody else who was kind of turning the other way and ignoring goes, oh, yeah, I know, Mike. Yeah. Like what happens is there's sort of this like breach or threshold that you finally push through it. And then it kind of, the pressure, like the air pressure of that ignoring energy or cold shoulder energy you've been feeling, like sucks the other way, and people go, "Huh? What was that? What do you mean?" Oh yeah, and then there's this. It's sort of like I felt that way too at one point where I was like, "Hey, I thought I was a good musician. Like I really, I can do this and I can do that. I have these skills and that." And not getting, there was periods of time and chunks of my journey where I'm not getting any recognition. I mean, most of my college career I spent like watching other people play the big hall and watching other people start to get together and jam and write, and I'm just sort of stuck on the other side of town with the Jews of BU, of Boston University, hanging there and just wondering, like, why am I not creatively active in this school, which is supposed to be like the pinnacle of my, musical existence here, like with all these, and I'm not getting anything out of it.
And why wasn't it?
Mainly because I was too good. No, mainly because I wasn't socially engaged there. Yeah. I was the only Orthodox Jew, so I was hanging out mostly and eating at the BU Hillel House at Boston and spending my time there. And I was busy doing just like some of the schoolwork and just kind of checking that box and doing it. And I wasn't as engaged. And a lot of those people that I thought were like the superstars then, I don't know what happened with them, but I'm glad I didn't peak then, But at the same time, there are people who still like kept at and are doing things today from there. But I definitely felt like I'm on the wrong side of this. In terms of the recognition pool. And it sucks to feel that way. And it makes you question yourself. But what helps is not thinking of it as some sort of cosmic blessing. Like maybe I'm not the one to be bestowed this recognition or greatness. Maybe it's just not for me. But then you're ignoring what's right in front of you, which is like what you're able to do. When you think in those terms, like it's some out of control lottery that some people just get get it and make it, and some people don't. If Kanye thought that way, he'd be like, I guess no one's recognizing my music. I'll just produce, or I'll go do something else, whatever. But he didn't. Now, there's a dangerous element to that too, where the flip side is you just keep ignoring the feedback that the world is giving you and you don't adapt.
Right.
So it doesn't mean you don't adapt, but it's the ability to adapt in the environment of stress and rejection that pushes you through. Not the digging your heels in the ground and doing the same thing. Maybe you're not doing enough. It's all, my main point is that it's all accountable to you.
The word adapt is perfect.
Yes.
Like, he was sitting in a hospital bed. The circumstances were what it was. His label was not supporting him, and he adapted. And like I was just very like moved by that, by his ability to do that.
That is the essential word here, because it's not like he just said, I'm just gonna keep yelling at my label to put out my record, and eventually they did it. It's like, that's not what happened. He just said, screw it, circumvent it. I'm gonna keep doing my thing. So you keep doing your thing, and you adapt your MO and means of doing it to make sure it eventually becomes undeniably recognizable and gets the recognition and respect it deserves. But you have to find a way to do it, which is what eventually you find your targets.
What's hard, I think, is like when you adapt. I mean, like, I adapted. I literally adapted one of my scripts into a short film, and like that didn't quite work. I found it hard to like adapt again, like again and again. It's like it's hard. No, it's true. It is Cry Me River. I'm sure it's been a process though.
I'm sure this video showed Kanye did showcased the one thing that did work, but maybe he was trying all sorts of things that didn't before, that we don't see. Like you're still only getting the highlight reel.
Right.
So maybe it was also like, and I spoke to this guy, and then I had this meeting, and nothing panned out here. It's like all the success that we witness is standing on the heels of a ton of rejection and pivots and turns. Yeah. A ton of them, like endless amounts. And it's the people who continue to adapt and work on their craft and get better and push that find their way. Because like it's sort of like this force that you're putting on everything, and it's like water. It's like water. I go kung fu on you, but you're pushing here and the water's not going there, but you can go here. And you're like, hey, but I wanted to get there, but eventually you got to get there. So
there's amazing clips if he goes into the marketing people's office at Rockefeller with the tape of Jesus Walks, and he puts it in and he plays it, and like literally like he's rapping to the marketing person. Someone walks in the room and they just start talking to the person. A year later, he was performing Jesus Walks at the Grammy, where he was not at the Grammys, where he won, I think, Album of the Year.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's like insane, but that same person then obviously is like, I just didn't see what you were doing.
Right. But imagine if he played that tape and imagine if he put all of the value and weight on that moment. They didn't react to Jesus Walks. I guess Jesus Walks sucks.
Totally.
Or maybe he had to push it a different way.
Yeah.
Or maybe he realized, I can't just walk into a room and play it like that. Yeah. Maybe the way it's being received is a problem. So it's not the song, but the way it's being received. Maybe it is the song. Maybe you need to work on that. But at least you're acknowledging that I need to do something to get this out. And that's the takeaway here.
So, I mean, it's tougher. Screenplays are tougher and easier in some ways, and there's nothing stopping anyone from going out and shooting something. But also some projects, they're just sort of bigger budget to be done like the way you envision it. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot you can do to bring it to life.
Maybe
you
need more like visual representation of what you do. So it's like not just short films, like 2-minute films that you could actually get done and then move on to the next thing. Like, I don't know. Like, it's hard enough to... Screenplays are different because they're unfinished by definition. You know?
Right.
As opposed to little songs. Like, the advantage a songwriter or producer has is they can make it start to finish. It's a finished creative entity. It's tangible and it's done. Out into the world, see how it does, move on. Screenplays will always be unfinished until they're made into films.
I mean, the problem I'm feeling now is like it feels like it's not quite. The problem is really not me or the material. It's like the industry and like what's being bought now, and what's not being bought. I mean, obviously, like if something, things that are great get bought eventually. But it does seem just like the time. There's like certain times where things are, maybe like 6 months prior, Kanye's music was not resonant, and like 6 months later it was. I don't.
If you're manifesting in the moment, what would you want to be happening right now that isn't?
What would I want to be happening right now?
That isn't. You're saying there's this void, there's this frustration I'm feeling bummed about. What is it that would flip that circumstantially?
Just opportunities to
tell it to mama.
Opportunities to pitch the projects or get paid to write other people's projects. Yeah.
And are you doing everything to make those things happen, or those things just aren't happening and it's bumming you out?
So I mean,
Like you're pursuing those actively, those channels?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm thinking a lot about what else I can be doing. I'm not entirely sure what else I could be doing.
So maybe thinking is the problem?
Besides writing more, which I'm doing, and sort of being patient and like just continuing to put out more good material and being patient.
Right. And what do you mean when you say putting out? What do you mean?
Well, I'll tell you maybe you could like have some thoughts on this. Like, from what I'm seeing, like a lot of the advice I'm getting from a lot of people is like, let's say I sent one of my projects was sent to like Spike Lee's people and they really liked it. But like, it's not something Spike Lee, he doesn't like work on finished projects. It's like probably just not quite the exact thing he's looking for. So like, they like me, but like not the project. So like, that's a win.
Inside Man 2?
That's cool. I would love it. I'd love to. Yeah. So that's cool. That's like a win. But then like the next like advice you get is like, well, just show up to their office. Like they just need to know you. They just need to like. But like what I'm understanding a little bit about this industry is like, it's not so well respected to kind of like you have to go through certain channels or you're really not taken seriously, like through the agents and the managers. And also, I think the thing that really bums me out is like it doesn't seem like there's much I can be doing besides his company just having different intentions. Like they like the material, they like the writing. It's just not they're just not gonna do it. Like I'm not sure what I can do besides write good material.
Yeah,
for the right people.
There are things.
Yeah, so tell me.
Have you considered becoming trans? Which some people have told me that helps.
I don't think,
but that's not the answer.
So, well, the messed up thing is like. At this level, like
if you showed up with a mangina to the office, you are in. No, here's the thing. Here's the real answer. I'll tell you the real answer. Yeah, the creative, being talented, being creative, having good stuff is necessary, not sufficient. Necessary, not sufficient. You're competing in a pool where there's a lot of good stuff.
I lost out to Nathan Fielder on a producer.
Great,
which is cool. But
compliment
but what
to
do you do about that?
So you have to, I think, recognize it's not the problem. Isn't my creative output? Yeah. It's getting the validation it needs. Great, that's a really good thing. Yeah, because there are plenty of people where they'll get something and they finally get it in front of somebody and it's not ready to be read. There's a lot of technical work that needs to be done, and that's not your issue. Good. Now the hard work begins. So the hard work is the social aspect of it. Most of these final opportunities become solidified and crystallized, in my experience, because somebody's like, oh yeah, why don't you call Michael? I just had coffee with him the other day at this thing. We were at some get together. We were at this thing where you formed a relationship or a connection with somebody who could eventually make a project move. The social game is the other half of it. In other words, the relationships that you form and the sort of good vibes you put out in terms of social connections with these people, relationships with these people. You're getting skeptical, but let me finish.
Yeah, I'm listening.
In other words, a lot of some of the stuff that happened musically for me, what changed was not necessarily that the music got better. It's just that it was digested and consumed from a place of trust from the person receiving it, because I met this person and then formed a little bit of a relationship and established a little bit of connection with enough people that, yes, I think the music did get better too, but that wasn't the game changer. The game changer was, oh yeah, I know Ami. We have a little bit of some sort of rapport, and therefore that makes it through the filter of everything else, so that when the opportunity does come around, I'm the person that they're thinking of, or that in that serendipitous way say, yeah, actually, I do have a thing that it could work for. Spike's team loved it, but they're not interested in that. But you know who I do know? This person. And you guys should meet. So it's that serendipity is really just, it's a dirty word, but the network. It's making yourself present on the radar of the people who could eventually see your projects to fruition. And it sounds calculated and a little bit, dirty, but it's not. It's just, everybody, there's an understanding when you're working in an industry where you're not just trying to make friends, you're trying to have relationships with people, but everyone's trying to do something. There's a larger macro creative agenda, trying to make films or TV or short, visual media projects, whatever you're trying to do. That's a given. So in that, you have to just make and establish relationships with people that will eventually do it. And it could be that your relationship area is suffering or is not as existent.
Well, that's for sure. A friend of mine, Lawrence, said last week, he said most problems are people problems.
Right.
And like, so what you need are people solutions.
Right.
So like, he's like, instead of writing for your day, think about what you could do to find people solutions.
So in my early days, I was going to the Billboard Film and TV Music Conference just to meet a bunch of people who, when the time came, could be somebody I could solve a problem for.
You know what my problem is though? When people meet me, they like me less.
No.
I think that's my problem. I'm joking, but I'm not. I don't like networking at conferences is like not my strong suit, especially when I don't have much to offer. I used to love it when I was working in startups and I was in a position at a startup where I could like help other people. Like I could make a partnership or like I knew a lot of people, I could introduce people. So going to these events was awesome because I'd meet someone and immediately be like, how can I help you? Oh, you need this? Like, and then all of a sudden, it's a great interaction. When I'm the one looking for something, I find it very difficult to make a good impression. I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Because you have to let go of the idea that I'm here for someone to try to get me something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just here to make friends.
Yeah.
That you know how to do. You know how to like make an impression that's not a creative impression. You don't have to think like that. You can always tell the noobs and the overzealous people from established people when you're at these conferences because people who are kind of new and green are handing out cards. Yeah, and they're dropping what they're working on right away. And the people who are a little less, who are not as overzealous, are just talking. You forget, we're all human beings. We're all fans of writing, and in my case, music. You get past that initial, like, everyone fronting. It's sort of like the development of one's personality.
Right.
You know, you learn how to, like, you know, when you go through adolescence, you're like, you're trying to showboat all the time, and then you realize, can we all just relax? Like, you come back to your sort of pure self of, I'm just a regular person with regular problems just like you. And most of your conversation should not be about shop. Because it's a given that you're there.
Right.
You're at a thing. They know you're up to something. So talking about family, kids, life, everything else that you know how to discuss with anybody, that should be the medium and by which you like engage with people of your industry. It's much more effective that way because then who are they gonna remember? All the people who pitched them crap?
Right.
Or I like Michael. That was a nice talk. We should get together. Yeah, listen, follow up with me, man. That was you're a good dude.
Mark? Yeah.
Or just let's get together next time you're in New York, or I'll come to LA. We'll touch base. You form a relationship. Yeah. I wouldn't even say a friendship, like friendship, sure, maybe that's even further down the road, but a connection, a relationship that's human is much more impactful for your career than having it just based on shop.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't start that way. Human beings just don't work that way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I run up against,
and you find those stories happen all the time before, like, how did it end up happening that you got cast in this and this? Or, actually, we met at this thing. We were, and we started like just hanging, and then we were just like, It turns out he's a great actor. It turns out I'm a great writer. It doesn't turn out that way. It was always the case, and it's not accidental that they met up. But you know what I mean.
No, what you're saying is objectively true, and like I have no argument against it.
And that's episode 20, ladies and gentlemen.
No, and it's something I need to do. COVID's made that difficult.
Of course.
But no, it's something I definitely need to be working on. I think what I run up against is I guess I believe on some level is like, truthfully, regardless of the relationship, there are just certain industry and like business considerations and circumstances that just sort of make certain things impossible. Like impossible is a big word, but like no matter how much someone likes you, the more famous person is going to get the deal, just because of like the way the industry works now is like IP and like pre-existing markets or just everything.
Yeah, and I don't buy into that much because I just think that's ultimately like until all of a sudden, it turns out the industry was one way for 5 years and then all of a sudden it changed. I don't know how that happened.
Until all of a sudden, right. So like,
so you want to be there and you want to be the until all of a sudden.
Right.
There really are no rules other than how did all those people get famous before you? What do you think happened?
Right.
They weren't. How did they beat the famous people before them based on that logic? Because when they started, they weren't always famous.
No, well, it wasn't. I mean, the industry does shift. Like 7 years ago, it wasn't quite the same. There was stuff being bought that wasn't intellectual property. Mm-hmm. Like it just almost doesn't exist now.
What?
Like
Can you define that further? What you're talking about?
When you turn on Hulu, Netflix, and TV, maybe not broadcast TV. When you turn on Hulu and Netflix, I would say 9.5 out of 10 of the shows you're gonna watch are based on an article, a book, or a celebrity's life. Like meaning, like if you're writing original stories out of sort of whole cloth, they're simply just not being produced.
So check out this future headline. So, it turns out what happened with Michael Weber and the reason he took off was there was so much saturation of intellectual property content out there and people were sick of it. I think people were just craving intellectual stories. That's the only way I can explain why Michael Weber ascended to writing superstardom, because what you were able to do, I'm being hypothetical,
So,
but you see what I'm saying?
So I think the best argument against it is, like you said, just like when it does shift, you want to be there.
Yeah. And there's a concept in entertainment of just the undeniability of something. So at the end of the day, any executive can have their opinion, but they only know so much. And that oftentimes is very little. They know almost like they're in the game at the same time that something takes off, so they ride with it. But you'll find that, it turns out they thought they knew all these things and they were the establishment authority until everything changed, so they just went to that. Oh, well, now how it is, everyone wants original. Nobody wants it. Like, that's out of, out of, whatchamacallit, out of the trend. Out of style. The point is, you have to be the one responsible for your output, and that output means everything, creative and social. Because I think people forget that the social aspect is, like I said, sufficient, necessary, not sufficient for the talent. But what comes in front of that is the social game. So the social game happens, that opens the door for you, that forms the connection, and then when they get behind the door, they have to see something good. Otherwise, you've just made a friend, fine, but you haven't made something that's going to form into a bigger creative opportunity. So it's like dating. This whole game is dating. You want to get married. You want someone, you keep proposing to people and saying, marry me, marry me, marry me, marry me. And they're like, I mean, you seem like a good guy. The stuff is good. Everything looks good on paper, but I'm not ready to marry you. You have to date. You got to work the motion. Bam! Or the ocean. Bam! It's a quote from some old, like, Steve Harvey, one of those classic Tyler Perry movies. It's like, it's all about the motion of the ocean. But I use dating analogies all the time because
it's about a waterbed.
You really have to think.
It is.
Is that what
There's
that
more
is?
motion in the ocean.
Motion of the ocean. I think ocean is a dick. The
Thought it was
motion
from
of the
Ladies'
ocean.
Man. Remember that movie, The
The
Ladies'
Ladies Man. Leon Phelps. The Ladies Man.
That
Ladies
is
Man.
such a good movie.
That's what it's from. That's what I'm thinking. It's about the motion. Bam.
In the ocean.
Of the ocean.
Yeah, because he has a waterbed on his houseboat.
So I think that's the best way to formulate the argument or the case I'm making. You have to date before you get married. So what you're missing out on is you're trying to skip to marriage, which is like a commitment to your project in a real way. And you got to date the person first. They have to get to know your sensibilities. They have to get to know all these things because there's a lot of trust they're bestowing in you, and they're not even. It's all subconscious. Yeah. And then they're going to be like, I used this producer over that producer, or this writer over that producer, or this engineer because I kind of liked him. Right. He had the skills, so did they all did. Yeah. Who won? Who's the one who got picked in the pot? Right. It's like we had a connection. I don't know. I got a good vibe, and most collaborations and successful ones work that way.
That's a good idea. My manager's idea was that I pretend to be a German heir and just like throw money around and say like my father has a trust fund, like rents like expensive hotel rooms.
This is a joke.
Have you seen Inventing Anna on Netflix?
No.
Oh, it's really good.
No.
I mean,
you watch way too much TV and I watch way too much nonsensical
every
content.
episode is an hour and a half. It's crazy.
Oh my God. But that's my chizuk and my advice. That's my advice. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I like that.
And I think for a lot of people, it's useful info because I like looking at it that way. Date before you get married. Your people are set. When you hand out a card, work with me, sign me. Right. I have the skills. I have the talent. That's like walking up to a girl and saying, "I'm husband material. Let's do it." Right. You might be. You probably are. Yeah. But you can't expect her to, or him, or whoever. Can't expect that significant other to jump right on board without establishing rapport and relationship that works.
Well, I look at people like Kanye and Andrew Schultz, and like I think in music and comedy especially, it's really exciting now, and exciting things are happening because all you need is a stage and a mic, and you can just or like
and a phone
or like a guitar. Yeah, exactly. So like someone like Andrew Schultz, like. He just went out and did his own thing on his own, and like you can do that if you're a comedian, and it's awesome.
And he okay, so I just want
who's Andrew Schultz?
Andrew Schultz, I love Andrew Schultz and everything he's about. Comedian and content creator extraordinaire. He's created a comedy empire. He's the host of the Flagrant 2 podcast with Akash Singh, and
Brilliant Idiots
with Charlemagne. So he was recently interviewed on this great...
And he has a show on Netflix. Wait, what else does he do? What's his empire?
His empire? He does his tour, which has become like... let's take it from the top. Andrew Schultz. I mean, I recently watched an interview, deep dive with him, which was really good to see because he does a lot of shtick and funny stuff online. But to get a kind of behind the scenes serious interview with him was great. And it was on a show by these guys, Colin and Samir. If I hope I'm getting the name right, Colin and Samir. And I recommend this to everybody watching. You should check out this channel, Colin and Samir, a YouTube channel. I don't know their full backstory, but they are content creators in their own right. They've built up a YouTube channel and a YouTube presence. And they dedicate now all of they have this whole channel dedicated to exploring the creator economy. And it is just so fascinating because it isn't just, oh, this guy's trending on TikTok. This guy's funny. This guy's talented. These are businesses. Let's take a look at these businesses. These are all small businesses, entrepreneurial pursuits of people building up their entire economies with their niche audiences.
I love when people take like newsmakers seriously, like the same way you compare them to Crystal Cigar, like when like they don't just look at Jeff Zucker getting fired from CNN as like, oh, he must not have done a good job. They're like, these are really smart business people with like lives. Like what are they really thinking? So these guys are looking at these people that we sort of don't take seriously, but be like, they're really smart.
I mean, guys, like the way Tim Dillon spoke about this on Joe Rogan, where he was like, I understand people like Jimmy Fallon. He's not Rambo. He's this Minecraft player, a gamer who has amassed millions of followers. Or Mr. Beast. Do you know who Mr. Beast is?
I just discovered him. I'm like the last person on earth to discover him.
You know, the Nelk Boys meta card raised $28 million.
Mr. Beast has 20 million subscribers on YouTube or something.
Crazy. Yeah. And there's a video of him from like 2011 or something. He's like, if we see this video in 10 years, we'll see how I do. And it's like a handheld camera. Marquise Brownlee. You know who that is?
No, I don't know this.
You do. You do.
I don't.
You do.
Oh. Who is he?
You ever see those Apple tech reviews by this slick looking black guy? He's very thin and he's like, so the reason iPhones, and he's like, he runs tech reviews. He does
There's a world of YouTube that I'm really not, most people aren't.
Have you ever like looked up an Apple product and wanted to see a review on it? And it's like comparing iPhone 13 to 12 and all its features. So he does like the slickest tech review videos in that space and he dominates it. Yeah. And now he's got like $1 million studio. He's created an entire brand.
$1 million studio.
Yeah. And he has a $250,000 camera called the RoboCam. That he was featured on Colin and Samir also because they covered him and his space and what he's built. Right. This massive brand and production facility where they film tech products and review products. And he started in his room with an iPhone. Yeah. And, you know, he's just like, so I want to talk about the new Xbox. Like, you know, and it's just an amazing time to be an independent creator because the possibilities are there if you put in the time and the work. So I really believe it. And you watch his evolution over the years. And we watch these other podcasters that started out on a stack of books with an iPhone. So I'm feeling good. Yeah. And it's promising. It's a good space to be in as the ride is taking off. But anyway, on Colin and Samir, they covered this world in depth, and it's great stuff. And they talk about the numbers. They talk about the business of the creator economy. And they had Andrew Schultz on to break down where comedy was, where it is, and where it's going, and his whole journey of how he created his comedy empire, and that encompasses his touring as a stand-up comic, his specials that he puts out. He's had a bunch of specials, some straight to YouTube, and then he had one to Netflix where he was doing rants during the pandemic, and it got picked up by Netflix. And so he has his tour, and he's trying to change the game of like what a stand-up comedy show is. So he's like, we're competing with these arena rock stars. Like, we need to bring more to the table. Yeah, a mic is great, but he wants to make it like this rock star experience for the audience.
Was he in the MMA before? Or was he in the UFC before?
No, that's Brendan Schaub.
He doesn't have any fighting experience, Andrew Schultz?
Andrew Schultz? No.
I thought he was a fighter.
No, that's Brendan Schaub you're thinking of? Who talks like, hey, that's that guy who's crazy.
There's that guy. So was Andrew Schultz always a comedian? Like,
yeah.
Oh, really? I don't know why I thought he was a fighter.
You're thinking of Brendan. I mean, he's the only guy I could think of that did an MMA to comedian crossover.
I think people compare him to like a boxer, like the way he sets up his jokes.
Oh, you know what it is? Yeah.
I mean, you did that, I think. Like
what?
He's a fighter. He
fights with the crowd.
No, he fights with the crowd, but the way he sets up a joke is very like he'll like punch you a little in the stomach, then like wait, he waits for the knockout,
Maybe we saw him live.
Use that.
We saw him live.
Yeah, and it was really cool.
Yeah, but you know what it is? I think there's a thing where he covered an MMA fight or a boxing fight and claimed to be the best commentator in the world. There was like some online joke about it. Maybe that's what you're thinking. I don't know. But anyway, he describes his whole thing about how he was just gradually putting out more and more content on YouTube when it was not seen as like the standard thing to do at all. Not standard, but like almost faux pas to like put out your jokes Like, no, you got to hold on to your material, and you do 1 hour every 2 years. You run it for like, some back in the day, people had one act that they did their whole career, and that was like their act. Maybe they added to it, but he innovated in the space and started releasing all this content. He gave a TED talk where he talked about how
he gave a TED talk.
Yeah, there's a TED talk of Andrew Schultz talking about how he found that he would release an hour of material, and people would watch the first 10 minutes and be like, okay, yeah, it was good. 10 minutes, and that would be what it was. And then he would talk about how he knew the game was changing when he was like talking to his nephew, and he was like, hey man, he's like, put the football game on. And he goes, what channel is it on? And he goes, oh, it's on ABC. And the kid goes, what channel is that? And he goes, right then, and it was over. And it was over right there. I was like, okay, YouTube? Something's happening. But on the point of, like, he knew the game was changing. He recognized it very early.
I know you don't watch football because you said it was on ABC.
Oh, was it? And the NFL on
CBS, Fox.
What's on ABC?
Maybe Monday Night Football at some point.
The NFL on NBC?
On NBC.
CBS. What was on ABC though? The game. He said
the NBA.
NBA. He said put the game on. It was the basketball game.
It's just
all right. You got me. Yeah, I don't know shit about it. Neither does he, but maybe he does. But he was just saying put it on, and he recognized that the kid didn't know what ABC was.
No.
Channel 7.
Yeah.
Like, he just didn't know. And he was like, right then,
Which
I knew.
is like...
He's like, I knew, okay, kids are not watching this shit. They're not watching TV anymore. I got to go somewhere else. And he spoke about how his dark place was... but my point about his releasing an hour of material, people watch 10 minutes. He was like, so that would happen. So what I started doing was releasing 4-minute clips. And I found that people would watch the first 4-minute clip, and then it would take them to the next video, and they ended up watching hours of my stand-up. But I gave them a choice to opt out whenever they wanted, because they were just 4-minute bits. Like these clever release techniques of how, and using the algorithm to his advantage, where
adapting.
It's like, and they would watch hours of Schultz, even though they wouldn't watch a full hour special straight. They would watch hours of him in general, because they would go to clips and clips and clips. So there were these clips circulating everywhere. And then he spoke about how...
so that's a great adapting.
Exactly. He didn't say my stand-up sucks,
right,
or my special is not working. He said, I'm going to try it a little differently, consume it differently. And then he spoke about how he knew the game was changing, so he started shifting into the YouTube space, putting out all this content. I was going to say something else about... he spoke about the different landscape of stand-up and how you used to go on the road and be just a road comic, and you'd hope to get on a sitcom. He's like, I don't want to act. I know. I was like, that's what I was supposed to. I didn't want to act. I can't act. But he started doing Brilliant Idiots with Charlemagne, and he was like received by the black community first before, even though he's a white comic, other white people audiences didn't know who he was, but through Charlemagne, who's like one of the premier voices in hip hop today and commentators in this space, like he was introduced to that world. And then started doing that podcast, and then I think once he got on Rogan,
was that like strategic of like I want to do it with Charlemagne to introduce
no,
me
I don't
to
think
his
so.
audience?
I don't think so. I think he just was in that space. He said, and his whole team is pretty diverse racially, so it was never an issue to talk about off-color things and like blue comedy and darker comedy and controversial stuff. That was just his style. But he was always doing crowd work and stand-up stuff. And anyway, it's a worthwhile interview to watch. And he just speaks about how he was going to this space that nobody was touching yet and really took advantage of it, and now has Flagrant 2, the podcast that he does, and has built up this massive audience and started seeing his shows sell out on the road, not realizing that he had an audience, not realizing that that this stuff was connecting with different people. And then once he went on Rogan, he said that was a big shift. But he had all this content there.
Yeah.
Once he got this visibility, all of a sudden, people came to this well of content that he had built up over the years. Tons of clips and bits and jokes that went viral and things like that. And
someone just sent me a TikTok. They didn't know who he was, but they just sent me a TikTok. They're like, "Oh, this is a great take."
Yeah,
I was
it was
like,
Andrew Schultz.
This guy's name is Andrew Schultz. Yeah,
and the speaking to your story, he talked about the dark place he was in, where like I would get the Cellar and these established stand up spots.
Didn't want to like.
They wouldn't. I think he might have been passed. They didn't even want. Either they didn't want to pass him, or these comedy clubs that they put on these big showcases, and then he would be on, but then they wouldn't air his set. Like they would put on these things for media, and he would be like, "They put me on. I go on at the end, and then I find out they cut me out of the show." And I'd be like, "What the hell? What the fuck? What is this?" And he'd get really frustrated. And he's like, you could either turn inward and question his own, his own creativity or try to find a different way. And he found a different way. And I recommend this show. Colin and some really, really, really cool stuff.
We'll put it in the show notes.
So, fascinating story. Big fan of Andrew Schultz. Shouts to him.
Uh-oh. No, that really did. We did with how he sits. He completely splays out.
Yeah. And exactly. He's like, and I was like, he's like, I don't want to do TV. I don't want to act. I want to tell jokes. I don't want to act. I only know one emotion: anger. I only know anger. I mean, what else can I do? I can't be serious. I can go, hey, what the fuck? For some reason, we can get angry. We can pretend to be angry. You can't pretend to be anything else. You can't pretend to be funny. Yes.
And
exactly.
We met him after the show. We saw this amazing lineup. It was Tim
This was
Dillon.
probably the birth of our podcast. We don't know it yet, but this was the beginning of our comedic journey together through this world.
Yes. I didn't know anyone. I knew Tim Dillon was performing, so I was in LA, and we went.
You were
out
visiting
together.
me when I lived in LA.
Yeah, we saw.
And you said, Ami, do you know who Tim Dillon is? I was like, no. You're like, he's this like anti-comic comic. We should check him out. He's like a nihilist. He's really funny.
So we waited in line for so long that we missed Tim Dillon's set.
We heard a tiny bit of it.
Who, by the way, I think the Gary Vee thing also set you off in a way.
Well, I didn't know. We were online and we finally got in, but we could hear. It's a bad feeling when you get to a comedy show and all you hear is,
and you're waiting.
People are dying and you're just like being late to the movie.
Yeah.
You're just like, I want to be in there right now, because then you kind of have to like walk in late and go, yeah. But he was doing a bit on Gary Vee. You're like, he's making fun of Gary Vee. I was like, oh, that's funny. I didn't do it. I hadn't done a Gary Vee impression yet.
Oh, you hadn't?
No.
Oh, wow.
There was no TikTok then.
Oh,
TikTok didn't exist then.
That's funny.
You know?
So we get in and we get the end of Tim Dillon's set, and then who was it?
Tony Hinchcliffe.
Tony Hinchcliffe.
And
the redheaded
Santino.
Andrew
Santino.
And Andrew Schultz.
Closed. Andrew Schultz closed.
And the feeling in there was like this is the beginning of something. That's how it
the
felt.
show was called Shadow Band because the theme was they were getting kicked off social media.
So after the show, it was an amazing experience, going to like an amazing concert, and we're sitting next door at the
Riris. I remember the jokes.
Yeah.
The Riris in the back. They put the Riri. He had a joke about like mentally disabled kids, and he called them Riris. I have a theory as to why there's more school shootings, because we didn't let us pick on the Riris.
I forgot that part.
Yeah, I remember
the vibe was amazing. We're sitting next door and we're drinking, and we see these people walking out with posters from the show, and we're both the type of people who are like, that's for suckers to like buy something at a show. But I'm like, I asked someone, I'm like, how much was that? They're like $20. I'm like, we should buy a poster for $20. So we went back, we got these signed posters, and we got to meet all of them after the show, and they were all really nice. I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, I hope Tim Dillon survives the year. He looks awful. It's like he just does not, he's not a healthy person.
You know what was striking to me?
Sweating.
There was lines to talk to all these comics, and I think it was like, Andrew Santino had a long line and Tony Hinchcliffe had a little more visibility, so people were like talking to them. And I remember looking over at Tim Dillon, kind of sitting to himself. I don't know who was with him, but I didn't know him yet either. So I didn't, he was just like, hey, how are you? How are you?
He had like a polo. He kept going like that.
But he was just so sitting there, and today, they'd all show up for Tim Dillon. I mean, Andrew Schultz too, but there would be a huge demand to see. Like he would have packed the place, and it's unbelievable to see because this was 2017, 2018.
No, it was
it was 2019.
2019. It was December 2019, December 10th, 2019.
Was it?
It was a few months before COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, so there he was there, and I remember talking to Andrew Schultz, and I said, like, dude, I think I kind of knew who he was vaguely from maybe Rogan appearances or something, but I said, you're a craftsman. Like, I've never, the jokes are so tight. And he was like, appreciate you.
It's hard.
Appreciate you. Some girl was asking him to sign her boobs, I remember.
Yeah,
he was like, oh.
Yeah.
But he was just like, appreciate you, man. Appreciate it. Very sweet, humble about it. And
they were all very sweet. I remember asking him, like, I was sure he grew up in Queens because of his accent. He said he grew up in the Village. They were all they're very, very like polite and like just like appreciative and very grateful. So they can, because they're nice guys, they would never do anything like weird or like off or like.
Well, we got one impression, but still, I feel you.
I'm saying that's what people say about Rogan. He's the nicest guy. He would never do anything wrong.
Well,
Anyway, but no, they were all really, really nice and cool. And I guess it was tough for you because you're like, I want you to know I'm not just a fan. Like I'm also
A fellow
kind of do this, but like you
No,
can't.
no.
Like,
See, at the
how do you
time,
do
I
that?
wasn't doing any comedy.
Uh-huh.
So I was a musician, and I'm in the game a little bit on a different side of the coin. But yeah, I always have a tough time. I don't want to be perceived as just like, that was really good. We loved it. You know, want to kind of, and I think I spoke to Andrew Santino for a while, and we kind of just got past that, like, first, like, thank you, man, I appreciate it. Like, we started just talking about, like, Twitter and the nonsense of...
He's famous. He's really famous now, too, also.
Yeah, now he's in Dave and all this stuff. It's been great for him.
Yeah.
It's great to see. But I remember that show making me really come to terms with, do I, like, want to do comedy or not? Because I was also, like, looking at it like... What is it about the stand-up that I have a little bit of an aversion to? Like, what's preventing me from doing it? That show made me question that a little bit because I'm looking at this guy's at the top of their game, clearly shaking with laughter. This room is, and like, this is like top-level stand-up. And there's a part of me that I looked over once at one of the guys working the club, and as jokes were killing, he was just like, okay, yeah, it worked. You know, like just kind of to himself because he sees this all the time. And, you know, there was just something at the time where there's an actor who was being interviewed on like Theo Von or something on one of the podcasts who said, you know, stand-up's the hardest thing. I always say, he's like from The Sopranos. He's like, stand-up's the hardest thing. I always say it's the hardest thing. Why? It's because when they reject you on stand-up, they're rejecting you. You. And that's not quite true, but if you think about it, when you do people don't like your acting. They're like, they don't like that character. They didn't like the writing. They don't like this. So there's a lot of things going on they might not like. You get on stage with the mic and they don't laugh. They don't like you. Whatever. So it's very personal. Yeah. And I had a lot of trouble separating like me as a funny person versus the craft of writing jokes. So if something doesn't work, I think a seasoned comic will tell you, and even a starting out comic, whatever, and sort of where I'm at now, it's something doesn't work. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm not funny or whatever it is. I don't like to get to that personal. I was able to, once I started doing my own stuff via TikTok and things like that, I was able to look at comedy the way I look at music, in that there's a creative pursuit here and there's a craft. You're writing jokes. I heard this podcast with Tim Ferriss interviewing Seinfeld, the way he talks about it. It's like, look, the joke didn't work. I have to rework the joke. But I'm not lesser for it. It's just I have to put more time into the joke, you know? So music has a way of not being as personal in that sense. If something doesn't work, it's the song maybe needs some work, but you don't feel personally destroyed. Some people do. But for me, if I could get to that point, music offers that kind of protection a little bit, and comedy, you're just exposed, and it's very obvious when, like, you can fake it with music where the crowd will groove along and forgive and kind of go with it, even if they don't quite understand it. But with laughter, it's yay, nay, constantly. Vote yes, vote no. And a seasoned comic can kind of play with that too. Yeah. But I was able to get over that. It's not me that they would be rejecting per se.
Oh, so this guy was wrong.
Which guy?
The guy who...
and he was speaking at it from an actor's perspective, why stand-up is so terrifying. And I think at the end of the day, that seems that way, but what they're really rejecting is the material. You're the vessel for it, and the performance, but it means the performance needs work, or this. Not you as a person. You can still be a funny person and have stand-up that needs work.
So let me ask you a question. Based on what Kanye said about he had to get in front of the mic to express the other 50%, are there things you feel like you can only express through stand-up? Like, why is crafting jokes in stand-up, why is that the way you want to get out your thought instead of through a song or a skit or something else? Like what do you think you're expressing through your jokes?
Well, I've done it through songs for years. I've done it through songs for years. For me, the song expression is less personal. I don't really write or think about it from that place. It's more like fun. I have a lot of fun playing music. It's very gratifying and entertaining. I don't attach too much like personal expression to some of the stuff. I try to express the idea sometimes, or think about it like, what is this coming? What is it? How did this get across as an idea? But I am like a performer at heart. Like I like that. I get off on that, at least on the musical side. The feeling of being on stage in front of real people and making an impact is a drug that I'm very into. You know, I like that. So I'm trying to see if with comedy I can get to that same place I can get to with music, where it's sort of transcendent. That's a long ways away. But that experience, being able to do that in a comedic context, would be something I think I could do. And I I would enjoy it. Like, hopefully, when it's get past the point of unpleasantness, I want to get to a point where I can really enjoy it and express the funny that it's like, how do you get to a point where you're comfortable enough that like your joke writing, your stand-up performance is also a part of you, an extension of you, and your ideas resonating and making people laugh.
So I think the good comics are not only doing that, but they're expressing a point of view.
Sometimes
that is, I think all the good ones are expressing a point of view, and I'm not saying political. Like Seinfeld's point of view is like, I don't know, the world is silly, and like,
but I feel like that's a given. But some people get mad. Oh, this comic, he tells funny jokes, but he has no real point to make. And I'm more of the school of thought when it comes to art, where it's like
not point. I'm not saying a point to make necessarily, but they all the jokes come from a certain perspective.
Yeah.
No, you're right. It shouldn't necessarily. Well, I take that back.
But I'm trying to answer your question. Like, what can I like? I mean, music and comedy are just different things. They're different experiences.
Well, I think
and they're tapping into different things.
I think
people.
your jokes will probably take off when you figure out exactly what point of view or what point you're trying to make.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's more I think it's exposure therapy. I think it's stage time.
I think so too.
I just need to be on it more, and that's frustrating for me. I'm not getting enough stage time that I'd like to get.
Yeah.
And I think the right opportunities will demand it of me. Like if I get booked for something like a big corporate where I have to do like the funny thing, which could be happening, then I'll just like work stages like crazy and shows and stuff and get comfortable.
Yeah.
I think what would really happen is if I figure out at some point creatively how to fuse everything I've built up from a musical skill set crossed with a comedic skill set but I have to work that up. I can't like bring one as a crutch to the other. And musical comedy is always a little frowned upon. So I still want to make sure like my stand-up can hold its own so that when they're brought together, they're complementing each other and not having one carry the other. You know what I mean? But I don't want to deny all this stuff I've built up over the years, abilities-wise and skills-wise, as long as it can serve the comedy. It clicked for me one day when I said, you know what? I don't have to like do a variety show. I just have to do music that makes things funnier. Like, how do I use the music and the stuff I can do to actually make the comedy funnier? Not, oh, here's some music and here's some comedy. That could never square for me. Yeah. But in general, the question, like, why am I called to do I feel like I need to do it?
No, that's not so much the question. No, because I can understand why someone would just want to be on stage and get people to laugh. That I get. But I guess I mean, like, I think if you talk to the great comics, they have a joke isn't just a joke. It's a point that's best expressed through humor. So like when you think like Patrice would probably be something about racism or the bullshit racism that people like talk about or like whatever it is. I don't think you could know that. I think you have to be doing that for a really long time. Yeah. But that's. But
my take on it is the first instinct that drives you to do it is, oh, that's funny. That's it.
True, but
not beyond that. It's not like I want to talk about racism in such a certain way that makes me. I really want to discover where that is. It's more like you are just on the. You're on the constant quest for funny. You're just digging for funny all the time. I've been writing jokes every day or trying to as a daily routine. I open up a little notepad and I just try to think. Yeah. You're looking for funny. Yeah. And that in its purest form is the quest. Like I want to make some I want to tell a funny joke or discover something funny or have a funny angle on something.
It might be subconscious, but I'd have to say although every comedian on the stage we saw, they may not even be able to speak about it articulately yet, but I think like at a certain point in their career they'll be able to look back and be like, you know, what I was trying to do there was like I had this thought like, how come women and men are really different, something like that, and like that's what that joke was about, and like I was able to craft like that's what's.
But it's all a retrospect after the fact kind of thing. It's sort of like with music. It's like I just liked the way that thing sounded, so I kept playing.
I wonder. I would love to talk. And I'm talking about like
Schultz
a master.
had a take on it.
Talk to a master.
Yeah, Schultz had a take on it in the interview. He's like, what comedy really is providing a space where we can say all the things we think, but not everyone can express. So everyone thinks a bunch of things and a lot of things that are universal, and not everyone can express them or even knows that they're there. And the comedian's job highlights what can't be expressed, says it, and everyone goes and laughs. He said something really profound in the interview. He said, you can have politically correct actions and speech, but you can't have politically correct thoughts. It's impossible. It's just an impossible thing to have a thought that's politically correct. All your thoughts are politically incorrect in a way, and then we try our best to like behave and be decent to each other. But with comedy, it allows you to go to a space and just say anything as long as it's funny. And what makes it funny, it's like a hard subjective thing to put into words or, articulate, but it's really saying those things that everyone is sort of thinking, but not everyone can articulate. The comedian can. Mm-hmm. And then people go, oh my God, that is true. I can't say that, but I can't, not because I'm not allowed to say it, but I haven't been able to formulate what that feeling is. And the comedian is putting it into a tangible joke. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes it funny. You're like, yes, that's true. So it has a little bit of relate. So there aren't even hard rules to it. Sometimes things are just ridiculous to watch and they're just funny. Yeah. But that's what you're really after. For me, at least, I can speak for myself. Like, I think comedy is the pursuit of funny, wherever that funny is, It could be something mundane, something profound, something off color, something risky. I think you want funny.
I think it would change. I think after you do a special and you're able to consistently and reliably, you're just like, I know how to make a theater full of people laugh. It's not like I know how to do it now. Right. I imagine something changes where you're like, I don't just want to make. I want to. I want to do it in a more sophisticated way.
Sure.
Pete Holmes talks about it.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure there's. People can speak to that too. Yeah. That's a ways away for me. I want to get on stage over and over again and get comfortable doing stuff and play with ideas.
I don't mean to discourage you at all. I think that's right. That seems right.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about it from music wise, when I want to make a record or something, like, what do I want it to say? I don't just want to make music for the fun of it. Like, what do I want the record to say? What kind of impact? Right. You can get to that point where you could think of things in a little more of a meta, like deeper sort of way. Mm-hmm. But I'm in that place now where I just want to build up the muscle. Yeah. The last point I wanted to make. Okay. Because we're over time. Mm-hmm. I think.
Yeah. It feels that way.
It feels that way. Yeah. I don't know if you saw this SNL bit that was going around.
I didn't.
Okay. It was John Mulaney was the host, and they did this bit where they're sitting around a table and COVID comes up, and it's that careful. He's like, I just think maybe, while I think the vaccine clearly saved lives, yes, the vaccine clearly saved lives, yes.
I've seen bits like that before. Yeah, I think they're really funny.
Usually they are.
I didn't see this one.
This one rubbed me very much the wrong way.
So what happened? Sorry.
Because what they're doing is the whole bit is highlighting how these conversations were so like treading on,
like walking through
on a tightrope to have these conversations. And he's like, but maybe, did we really need a third booster? And everybody freaks out. So it's funny, right? I get why there's funny in it. But I feel like SNL was on the side of woke culture overall. They have been on the comedic side, at least, of, they make fun of Joe Rogan for his ivermectin, some cheap, stupid joke. They
chose a side.
They did, in a sense. And they chose a perspective where they were all about sanctimony and judgmentalism in a lot of ways. And watching this bit really, to me, being able to like say all the things that you demonized everybody else for having, these opinions that everyone's had for 2 years, and you called them a bunch of crackpots. You said they were worthless. They should be forced to get vaccinated. They should be and I don't want to go down the COVID rabbit hole yet, but I'm watching this bit, and it felt like I was watching the bully in high school go up to his victim that he's been tormenting for 2 years and say, hey man, I was just joking around, right? Like, I didn't mean any of that. Because I agree, like, I shouldn't have been doing any of that. Like, of course, like, masks don't really work. Like, yeah, I guess maybe the mask didn't really work. Without an ounce of sort of reflection or remorse, and I'm not saying a bit should necessarily convey that, but it just was full of that sanctimony and that bully who was trying to get away with it. Right. And trying to get off on, we were just kidding around about all that. You guys are, and that demonization was very real for a lot of people.
Joe Rogan, and like it wasn't
not
even
just Joe,
but
the average person was demonized for saying, I have questions. Mm-hmm. You thought you had all the answers, and now it's coming out, as opposed to giving some vindication to the people and you have some, stuff to account for here of the way you've behaved, which was pretty despicable.
Well, that's kind of what goes back to the point I made a while ago about how when all that shifts, that whole like, they're going to need to like blame someone for the way they had thought. And I think that person's going to be Fauci. They're going to be like, no, I hear what you're saying now. I was just listening to Fauci. Like, that's what Fauci was saying. So of course I said that. And like, of course, like, we understand the vaccine's not perfect.
I get it.
But Fauci was saying otherwise.
But the message I took away from this, what it represented to me, was them just trying to sneak on by and get away with.
And not take any culpability.
Yeah, not say, it was Fauci. They were just saying, yeah, okay. So, like, we're totally with you. Like, it was just like the bully trying to get away with what he's been doing to his victim for the last 2 years. And it's like, hey, CDC, you're coming now saying, so masks, as it turns out, kids are not really at risk. And we've been saying it forever, but you've been putting our kids in masks and making people crazy for 2 years. And now you're just going to say, yeah, it's fine now. Oh, the science has changed. No, it hasn't. The evidence changed. No, it hasn't.
Yeah. The antidote to that are 2 emails I got this week.
Yeah.
By 2 independent journalists. One was from Matt Taibbi, who sent a note to his readers. He said, "Hey, everybody."
So it turns out that the CDC is just a corrupt institution.
No,
We've known this.
It wasn't about COVID. That was pretty good. But no, he said, "Listen, I know I told you all that Russia was not going to invade Ukraine, and I was wrong." He's like, "The people I was speaking to told me otherwise, but like, I'm owning up to it. I was wrong about this one.
I thought they were totally bluffing, but it turns out they were."
Again. And then Sagar also on Breaking Points, he was like, "I went on for weeks about how Ukraine wasn't gonna."
I think it's Sagar, by the way.
Sagar.
Crystal calls him Sagar.
Okay, so Sagar.
You were wrong.
Now it's Kiev all of a sudden.
Sagar. I was watching a clip because I started watching because of our Buckle Up feed
Crystal
on YouTube.
And Sagar. Did
Crystal
I just make that up?
It's Crystal and Sagar.
Oh, okay. It's SAAGAR.
Yeah, Sagar.
All right, Sagar. I can admit I was wrong. No, but he said in the same way, he's like, I was completely off, and like I apologize. And
a lot of commentators I follow also owned up to it. It's like, I was wrong. They invaded.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
You don't hear that a lot in like from big institutions.
So instead of CDC saying we were wrong, they just say the science has changed. They changed the language, and you're just like, your credibility is just shot.
Yeah.
And this whole idea of just trying to get away with it, all of your sanctimony, all of your demonization. Now Jake Tapper can start speaking out on CNN. Like, this is kind of ridiculous. When anyone who had questions was made to feel crazy.
By you. Like by these people.
Yes. Yeah. Made to feel like a Trump supporter, January 6th storm the Capitol person.
Yeah.
Made to feel anti-science. You are not, we cannot let you get away with that. The way you behaved, calling people anti-science. How many other topics and subjects are you that sanctimonious about and that wrong on that you'll just come around and think you could just get away with
These things matter, though, because they have viewers and they have readers, and readers, somewhere in their mind, they know.
They'll pay the price.
They note.
Yes.
Like, you were saying something else. The same thing with, like, the Black Lives Matters protests. Like, on Monday, you were saying you cannot gather in groups, and the next day they were going, these protests for Black Lives Matter are amazing despite COVID. I'm not commenting on that, but people aren't stupid. They see it and they go, there's something missing here.
I got into a conversation this past weekend with somebody who still couldn't see how, who had trouble seeing how ignoring the violence and property damage that was going on during the Black Lives Matter protests, but fully understanding that in Canada they called a protest an insurrection. They were like, they're doing an insurrection in Ottawa. And then somebody was like, yeah, but like, I mean, how many people marched for BLM? It was like millions, right? So there was like a few things. And in this case, like they were like blockading the bridges, like clearly just buying the talking points of CNN. And I was like, forget where you stand politically. You can't see that. And to the person's credit I was talking to mostly, he was like, yeah, I get it. I think it was wrong that they called an insurrection. They should be able to protest in some respects to a point. But Biden did speak out against the violence and BLM. I'm like, no, he didn't. I mean, yeah, eventually he said violence in general is wrong. What a brave statement. Violence in general is wrong. He did not there was no active condemnation or coverage of what was going on during those protests. They were deliberately lying as burnings were building behind them. It's mostly peaceful. And then in Ottawa, when it is mostly peaceful, they say, we saw a Nazi flag, and that gets all the coverage. So I just mean, yes, most people see through it. And I think the reason their viewership, I think, is down. CNN's viewership is down 90%. 90%.
Is that true?
I don't know.
I heard it's down 100%.
I heard that. I heard that those were the numbers.
Yeah.
90% have left.
No, it's fine.
So yeah, they pay the price.
Yeah.
But I just watched this bit as a representative of pop culture, the SNL bit where it stood. Yeah. And while I wanted to give him credit for trying a funny bit, I'm like, I'm sorry. You named and shamed everyone who wasn't wearing a mask. The worst of COVID, COVID that brought out the worst in you and your judgmentalism towards others. And it brought out the worst in everybody, but you're not going to get away. I can't let it slide like that. You can pretend that this is just all, we're just joking around. Yeah. It wasn't that silly of us. It's like, well, it's like it was manipulative. It's like the abusive mother who says, baby, I was just joking. I love you. I love you. But I was beating you for months and months and months over the head. Every time you came home, mommy was just joking, right? I mean, I love you. It just seemed like a manipulative move.
I totally hear it. John Mulaney's had his issues.
He has had his issues. I can't do John Mulaney. Oh, don't even think about that. My God. I mean, I don't know him enough to know, but I know
Seinfeld.
There's something there. Yeah. But, there was like the divide in comedy of the the sort of freedom fighting comedy and the comedy who was like in line with
it's
institution.
John Mulaney opened for Louis C.K. for a long time. Like I wonder behind the scenes what those texts were like. Like, hey Louis, I can't come out in defense of you, but thanks for all your help.
Did he say that?
I wonder. I'm saying like they were friends and he helped him a lot. But he didn't like he's not on that side of the culture. He's on the institutional side.
Well, the D'Elia thing was interesting because I didn't know who betrayed D'Elia when he said you don't know who your friends are in this business until you know, and then you don't know.
Probably talking about Whitney Cummings.
I would imagine. I don't know. That's like the gossip side of it. Yeah. But he's now back on with like the fighter, the King and the Sting, and all. So it's revealed to you who he's still friends with.
Totally.
So that was interesting. But I remember at the time, like even Brian Callen was saying, I know Chris, but not like that well. And I'm like, are you like backing off of this? But I guess not. Maybe they made amends. I don't know. I don't know what D'Elia's like the status of that scandal is, but clearly he's out doing his own thing with these podcasts. That whole
scene, we talked about it with Pete Holmes, the Pete Holmes, Birbiglia, Mulaney, Nick Kroll thing is like, because like they're probably very cool, but they've been so successful within the mainstream institutions.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder what kind of feelings they have towards like, I wish I could just go on Rogan's show and have a good time and like hang out with these guys. Cause like they're funny and I like them probably, but I wonder what that's like for them.
Well, I'll make a plug for a documentary I started called Full Capacity, Sam Morrill's documentary, which documents comedy through the pandemic from no comedy, rooftops to 30% to 50% to 100%. I'm like halfway through it. One thing that's nice about it is it does show that there's still this community. Like there was an SNL comic there too at the clubs working it, and they're like talking and they're friends. So they all come from a similar school in a sense. Joey Diaz went off on SNL actors. They're not stand-ups, they're comedic actors, okay? They're not fucking stand-ups, they don't do the trenches of what we do, okay? Get your fucking balls on the table, all right? It's Monday, bitches, cocksuckers. But he talked about them as a different class of actors, a different class of comedians. They do comedic acting, they're not stand-ups. But some of them are. So his documentary does make it feel a little more like it's this broader community.
Nick Kroll just played Carnegie Hall, I think. Yeah. He does stand up.
Right. So I do think there's a camaraderie there still that we don't see.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm interested in what the green rooms are like. Very interested. Yeah.
Sure.
I don't think we'll ever find out, but
maybe I will.
Yeah.
Let's hope.
Would you report back? I guess you wouldn't, because that's why
we don't know
about it, because it's sacred. Yeah.
No, I mean, you just don't know. How many established comics are you friends with?
Well, they would talk about it on their podcast.
What?
I would think they would talk about it on their podcast. Maybe you'll tell me in private.
I don't know. I don't know if it's sacred. Only. Patreon only. The
you hear the racist and the secrets.
The secrets of the green room. Hopefully, I'll be there soon and I can report back. That is episode 20. We had some energy today. Today was good. 20 is a nice number. We celebrate it. With a fingy?
With a fingy.
Oh, that's episode 20, people. We'll see you episode 21, baby. Until next time. I hope the camera...